This is Inside the Game, where passion meets precision. Jonathan Turner, Nathan Wengler, and John Natale are your hosts, breaking down every goal, every controversy, every match that matters. From the heart of American soccer to the global stage. No fluff, just football. Weekdays at 9 a.m. live on YouTube, Roku TV, Facebook, Twitter, and all listening platforms.
Welcome to Inside the Game on the National Soccer Network. Now, here are your hosts, Jonathan Turner, Nathan Wengler, and John Natale.
Good morning, and happy Wednesday. It is the 4th of June and episode number 98 here on the National Soccer Network, and we're excited to have you as we get ever so closer to episode 100, which will be here on Friday. I'm not quite sure what we're going to do for that yet. We'll have to put our heads together on that, gentlemen, as I'm joined by Nathan Wengler and John Natale. I guess we should probably have a conversation about that, not necessarily on the air, but definitely talk about what we should do for such an important moment in the history of our show.
I think it's pretty big.
Skydiving.
That's what she said.
No. Gang, to the listening audience, at some point we're going to release a behind-the-scenes blooper reel of this show, and it's just going to be me shaking my head the entire time. It really is.
At least one of us should skydive. I don't know.
You can go, Nate.
Yeah,
Go ahead.
For the beginning.
Go right
okay,
ahead.
I'll go. Yeah, for the beginning.
Get a Go Cam, get a GoPro.
Yep.
And just do the show from the air. Just like keep going up and dropping off for the next hour.
Me struggling with my parachute as we're 2 minutes in.
Boys.
We showed the episode of a few months back of Steve Bask, who used to be with the network and moved on to family life, but he's been a part of our comment section, a fan and viewer of the show, and he did the one chip challenge live on the air back like a year and a half ago.
Was that that Paquito? Okay.
Yeah. He went for like 12 minutes without any drink. It was pretty impressive. But for the rest of the day, he was over here in our studios. He was in the fetal position for the next 6 hours. So, he couldn't move. He came prepared. He brought in ice cream. He brought in like everything. Nothing seemed to really work. But he did make a full recovery, which is good. So.
Well, good. That's good.
But we are getting closer and closer to episode 100. Again, obviously tomorrow, Thursday, we'll have number 99, and on Friday we'll have 100. And so we'll brainstorm about what that looks like here over the next couple hours and tomorrow to really, I think, give the show what it deserves, maybe a new look and feel and things like that as we go into 100. So yesterday we dove into and talked quite a bit about the aspect of traveling in the game of soccer or in sports in general in the youth environment, and really what that looks like, right? And we talked about memories, we talked about the camaraderie that you get when you go on the road and what happens in this team environment. And, John, you brought up a great point yesterday. And I do want to start, the show with this, because I feel like this is a good conversation to be having, especially as tryouts right now are occurring all across this country this weekend, right? And you talk about that, right? Because tryouts is a big deal. And if you think about it from the standpoint of this, there are kids all across this country who are, going to go lace up their shoes this weekend, get out onto the field and try out and compete to make a team. And now, while I think that the tryout environment is way different than it was for us growing up, that now, even if you're trying out for a certain team, the likelihood of you not making a team, but just being put on maybe another team is more likely than you walking away and having to go find somewhere else. Because when we were growing up, if you didn't make the team, that was it. Like you could go to try to go across town and try to find another team, but that was it. Now you don't make that A team, you can go to the B, the C, whatever other team that the clubs want to keep you in the mix. So, but if we are talking specifically about like the first team, right? You think about your varsity teams, you think about your highly competitive, maybe junior varsity programs, your ECNLs, your MLS Nexts, right? These are the teams that, and the environments where winning and getting to the next level is the main priority, right? It is development and get you to, to send you to D1, send you to the MLS, send you to the NWSL, send you to those places. That is the goal. So are there players who are in that environment who are like, yeah, okay, cool. Yeah, I really love playing soccer, but I don't know if I want to do this, but I'll give it a go. They're maybe 80% in, 50% in. I don't think you can ever, to be fair, and maybe John and Nathan, you can answer this question, but do you think it's hard to spot somebody who's 100% in?
Me personally, no.
So I don't think on a mental standpoint, it's hard to point out, but I think it's easy to point out who's 100% invested that's never going to get to that level.
Okay, that's perfect. Okay.
Yeah.
That's a great way of putting at it.
I'd say yeah. Emotionally, it's easy to tell who's not invested, but he's right. I mean, there's a lot of people that are involved in that want to do that want to climb the levels, that maybe want to be pro or have a dream, but are not going to be able to contribute because of one reason or another. Maybe physically they're not there. Maybe because of genetics they're not there. What's up, Peter? Which is, I think, is an important thing to talk about, right? Because I feel like, and maybe I'm wrong, and this is cross sports, it's not just soccer too. I feel like sometimes parents think, well, so long as I get my kid in early enough and he gets the right coaching and he gets this, that, or the other thing, he'll have all the tools to go pro. I'm like, but some of this comes down to like the simple fact of like genetics. You know what I mean? Like, I'm sorry, if daddy's 5'7", 100 and nothing, you probably ain't gonna do much. You know what I mean? I'm sorry. I don't mean to be so like discouraging, but I think there is part of that too, where it's like you can do everything you want to do. I think a lot of it comes to there's nature and nurture, right? And I think sometimes we forget about the nature part because that does play a role. But obviously, you're not going to turn someone down who wants to spend money to be on your team or get the coaching, right? Because then people are making money, and that's where you want to be. But sometimes that's why I think is problematic when we talk about how many teams and how many leagues and how, everybody's trying to find the next guy, but it doesn't mean just because you're a part of that process earlier on or earlier than other people that for some reason you're going to be able to climb the ranks and be that person. So I think it's an interesting dynamic.
Let me ask you two. Nate, you're more so baseball, right?
Mm-hmm.
And JT, you being a keeper and everything. Did you guys have that mentality that you kept wanting to advance to the next level and be a superstar in a professional league? And if you were, in all honesty, when did you give that up? At what level did you say, I'm just not going to get there?
Probably high school. Later in high school, you start to realize, not that I didn't want to play at I'm a unique story because I wanted to broadcast sports. Like even in high school when I was going through the process, like there was at one point, I feel like when I was in maybe middle school, younger, where that was the goal. I wanted to be the guy. But then once I got into high school and I started to realize guys were not only catching up to me size-wise, but surpassing me. All it takes is one game against an Orchard Lake St. Mary's to realize, like, okay, there are levels to this thing. When you have Allen Robinson on the other team, and he catches a ball, and your teammate's only 3 yards behind him, and this is a kid that's somewhat fast, and he ends up being 25 yards behind him by the time he gets to the end zone. Or you have to block Obi Eze, who played at Michigan, or you have to go up against any one of these guys. You start to realize, or maybe you're playing high school ball and someone brings a 90-mile-an-hour pitch. You're like, okay, all right, there are layers to this. There are definitely, and I'm only seeing this in high school. So that's when I realized, like, okay, I'm not going to play obviously at a major program, and I'm only 5'8.5". So that there were a couple of things that made me realize there, but I would say that was probably my time.
JT?
Yeah, I mean, I think you reckon. I mean, I can't speak to the football environment because I didn't play football. But when I in the soccer environment, you obviously tried out, for your teams, and you knew kind of the local talent because you play them right on a regular basis, and that's what obviously what Nathan's alluding to is like, hey, I played against George Lake St. Mary's, and holy crap, there's some unbelievable talent there, and then the gap, right? When I played the likes of Ardar growing up, the significant difference between what they could do with the ball and what we could do with the ball was significant. I mean, they were beating teams 8, 9, and 10-0, right? That's how they were beating teams. And it wasn't because they were just superior soccer players, and all of them went off to play at the highest levels. But I think it's a little bit different too, because for example, as a goalkeeper, my job was to keep the ball at the back of the net. And so if I was busy, that meant I was making a ton of saves. And so that meant that the teams that like Vardar, for example, saw how I played, and they're like, well, we want you to come be on our team. They recruited me to come be on their team. And for the longest time, I didn't want to, because I didn't know if I wanted to be in that environment. There was times where I was like, I could definitely play at the next level. I don't think there's any in my mind. I never really had a doubt about the next level. I think for me, the issues or concerns that I had about playing at that level would have been, would I have been able to meet what I would have considered to be my own personal expectations? You know what I mean? Because I had these expectations that, I was watching goalkeepers doing things that I wasn't able to do. I wasn't able to hit a ball 90 yards on my feet. I wasn't able to punt a ball 85 yards. I can punt the ball between 45 and maybe 60, depending on the day. There's some things that I just didn't lack. I didn't have physical strength. I just, to be fair, I still don't. I think most people could, I'm not going to say this on the air, but I think I get my ass kicked about 90%. 90% of people can kick my ass. I'm not
going to say this on the air, but 90%. Please proceed to say it. I mean,
so it's like, I mean, physical strength, I never wanted to get into the gym. It just wasn't my thing. And so, I mean, the counterparts were out there, they were lifting weights and getting stronger. I relied on what my own natural abilities and worked at those, and didn't work on the other intangibles that you would need to have to be at this level. And so, and then along the way, I started to kind of not love being in that environment. So, but yeah, I definitely felt like I could play. I don't think there's any doubt that I could do that. The only thing I was concerned about was whether I could do some of the things that my counterparts could do.
With baseball, with me, is that I didn't give up until I actually got to professional level. When I went out to Kansas, I felt in high school that I was that silent leader. I wasn't very vocal. I wasn't the cheerleader. I wasn't the push people type of guy. I was the first one there. I was the last one to leave. Just would go in the cage on my off days, throw tennis balls against a garage. I mean, I was that kid. And when I was able to go out to Kansas and I played for 2 years, it was like right in the quarter part of that second year where, I thought I was doing well for my personal self. I always wanted to bat over 300. I wasn't that much of a power hitter, even though I'm 6'2", and at that time I was 215. So I was a good sized kid, but I was a line drive hitter. I could pull the ball, all that kind of stuff. But I started to realize, and Nate, you see this basically every day when you do a Whitecaps game, how good you have to be in order to get that next level. And it's not that you're good in your league. I think that's the biggest misconception of what people see from the outside looking in every sport, especially soccer, that you have to be special in your league, but you have to show that you can be special at the next level. That's what it is. You can dominate a bunch of.
You got to dominate. Yeah. You got to dominate the league.
Yeah.
In order to get
if you're a man amongst boys, go back to when, best example I can use, LeBron James, when he was coming out of high school. It was a joke. Mm-hmm. Every team that he played, everybody, they were 4 or 5 inches smaller than him. And it was just a special talent. 50,000 points later, the story wrote itself. But you really have to show, and if you're at single A, or let's say you're at USL 2, you have to play like you're a USL championship player. You have to play like you're a AAA player, not hey, I'm really good at single A ball or I'm really good in USL 2. Right. It doesn't work that way.
Right.
You have to be a different breed, a different animal to get that recognition and to move up, because when you do, as you said, Nate, and as JT, you said, people are going to be faster. They're going to be stronger. They're going to be bigger. And if you're not that, you don't have the time to get in the weight room. You don't have the time to refine your skills, because when you get up there, you have to be ready for it. It's not a testing ground.
And the best players, every single player in our league was the best from where they came from, from their travel teams, from their community, their college teams. They were the best from every single place they came from. And we literally had a pitcher that struggled because he didn't know how to pitch from the stretch. He never had to growing up because no one ever got on against him. Maybe one guy.
Yep.
And then he gets to our level and he gets smacked around the park. And herein lies, the point is the rarity of actually getting to a level in any sport where you can make enough money to do it as a lifestyle, to be secure in the amount of money that you make just playing that sport is a percentage of a percentage. Because even if you're good at whatever level, whatever amateur level you're at, once you get to the pros, it's like I said, there are layers to this thing. And, like we have guys who came out of high school. A perfect example. One of our kids that came out of high school, had over 100 strikeouts against him the last 2 years. He was a world beater in Texas. I mean, he's one of the best high school prospects we've ever had. Struggled, got beat down for 2 years. He's finally starting to turn a corner now, but that's just the truth that surrounds it, is that and even then, I remember being in Florida, and it's one of the happiest accidents I've ever had in my life. We were in Miami, and my buddy and I are like, let's just go catch a game. You know what I mean? No one goes to see baseball in Florida. It's probably going to be 100 people here. We roll up, it's packed out. Jacob deGrom was making a rehab appearance in low A at the game that we just randomly went to. So a 2-time Cy Young winner is on the mound for a rehab start against a bunch of 18-year-olds. Faced 9, struck out 8. The only one that didn't strike out was a pop out. Gets off the mound, puts his jacket on, gets in his car, his multi-million whatever, and leaves. And he's like, thanks guys, appreciate the practice. Those are pros that he was playing against, and he was toying with them like they didn't even exist. So that's I think sometimes people think, like, again, back to my original point, and this is the problem in my mind when young kids get so wrapped up and, he's going to be the next big thing. And so long as we just put him in the right program and get him the right coaching, he's going to be, if you can't tell, if he's not head and shoulders physically above everybody else around him, it's tough, right? And that's why I think it's important to have a balance in all this and not burn kids out early on.
So this is where my question comes in, because again, I know the baseball world is going to be different than that of the soccer world.
Right,
and
right.
The reason why I think it's important to say that is because you don't necessarily have to be the best player to be in the MLS, but you have to be the right player that fits the best into the system, right?
Mm.
And that's abundantly clear across the MLS. There's a lot of really great players, but sometimes the greatest player isn't on the field, right? And sometimes it is the player that just makes the most sense, who actually can be very versatile or whatever it might be. And that might make, and the same case in a lot of colleges across this country too, where you have these players that are just like the best fit, for that model, for that system. In baseball, if you're a 300 hitter, 400 hitter in the minors and in your league, and you're good defensively, solid defensively, are you going to make it to the majors?
In baseball, you have to hit, plain and simple.
Yeah, but
anybody can field a baseball. Anybody can field a baseball. You don't have, you can watch professional baseball now. You can watch Major League Baseball and see the sloppiest defense, but a guy will come up and just either he rakes or he's consistent at that level. But you have to remember, a 330 hitter in Major League Baseball, it's an odd sport because you fail 60% of the time and you're still successful. So you have to rake. But see, I think soccer is super unique. And JT, you can, because you have the most experience playing wise, as you know, than Nate and I combined probably. But soccer's situational, isn't it? Because if you have a certain striker who just maybe be really good with the ball at his feet, but maybe not enough speed, you'll have so-and-so player mark him. But if you get another person who's super fast, who all he needs is a ball in front of him, maybe one touch back of the net, you're going to put someone else on him. In baseball, it's if you can hit, you can hit. Doesn't matter who's on the mound. There's really no situation. Now, sometimes it depends. Like a person may struggle against righties. You may struggle, but blah, 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 whatever. If you can hit, you can hit. You never see people like Aaron Judge or Shohei Ohtani or Mike Trout or any of those guys not in because of a situational pitcher. But in soccer, it's different, especially on your back line. You would see that a lot. And with soccer, how much true height is out there? You don't see 6'3", 6'4", 6'5" guys on a soccer pitch a lot. You maybe see one every blue moon or so, but it's usually what? What's the average height of a soccer player? 5'9", 5'10"?
I don't know. I mean, it's probably a good question. I'd have to. I don't know. I don't know if that's even a stat you could look up. But you know, I mean, first off, if you're talking about it from the standpoint at the professional levels, right, or even like the high amateur levels, right, where you only get 7 subs in a game. Mm-hmm. There's definitely things that you'll do situationally that will help your team. One of those being managing the health of your roster, right? So giving players who are maybe struggling or need moments or hey, freshness, whatever you want to call it. But from the standpoint of systematic changes, right? I saw it this weekend against Lou Fuse versus KC Current 2, and you could tell that early in that game that Lou Fuse was outmatched. You could just, I mean, you knew going in. I mean, they're just roster from top to bottom.
This is WPSL, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Sorry. You could just tell that they were outmatched. And they were moving the ball around, and what was Lou Fuse doing? They were sitting on their heels. They were in a shell. They were in a defensive shell. Now I talked with Jeff after the game. I'm like, clearly you guys were very defensive minded, and you were playing the transition game clearly. And so what that means for
do that.
he just
I hit the wrong way.
He just went down. I'm like, what? He's like,
wrong way.
Say
the elevator is going down.
Jesus, scared the shit out of me.
But you could tell. And I talked about the game. I go, you were doing this. That's exactly what we were doing. He goes, our team wanted to play straight up. I go, yeah, well, that. I understand what your team wants, right? We all we want to go out and win, but and we want to do it. At least we're going down fighting. No, I mean, you go out to win the battle in a way that gives you the best chance of winning. You don't just, and that's how that works. So there's got to be strategy involved. And I can't tell you how many times as a coach, my players are disappointed in the fact that we weren't trying to go straight up against a really superior opponent. Like, no, we need to change things up. I need to take my best player who is the strongest in the air and put them as a center back for today's game, because at least that way we have a chance of fighting those direct balls, right? Hey, take that strong forward who's really good with the ball, but also very physical, and make him a left back today. You know what I mean? Make him a left back, and hey, here you go. And to be fair, in today's world, there's not a huge difference between a left back, a left wing back, and a left forward. They're basically the same thing, right? And I mean that in the simplest way possible. There's obviously some differences, but I think everyone gets the idea. And so, yes, there were things that we did systematically. There are some players that were very good north and south. You're quote unquote naturally talented and raw speed that you just can't teach. They don't necessarily have the intelligence to understand the diagonal runs and the different things you can do to create space, but they're just really fast. Like if you put in Usain Bolt on a soccer pitch, for 10 minutes, just drop balls over the back, run onto it. I mean, what would happen? I would like to think we'd see some goals just because he's going to be outrunning everybody. So there's some things about that you can definitely do. Baseball, I think, is obviously way more situational because, again, if you're facing a right-hander and you're not a good right-handed batter, and you got someone who's got a lefty that can come up and take care of business, then you're going to maybe put that person in. I mean, I think people undersell and undervalue, I think, the average fan, how much situations are in baseball or in softball where you have to make these changes, these adjustments, the things that are happening now. It's crazy. I think it's a great point, though. Right. Understanding as a player, when you're walking onto a pitch or walking into a tryout environment and acknowledging the fact that there's players out there that are way better than you, acknowledging that in a mental level. And then more importantly, what are you going to do when you step into that environment? And how are you going to treat it? Right. Again, if you're walking into if you've been invited into an ECNL or academy environment, you're there for a reason. Because the coaching staff and the club thinks that you have maybe what it possibly takes. And what they're looking for you in that tryout moment is if you're going to rise to the occasion. They're not looking for you to be the best player on the pitch. They're looking to see how you handle yourself in the situations that you're about to be put into. No different than the minors. To be fair, everything about the minor leagues is an evaluation process. Every player is there for a reason. And every player potentially has a possibility of getting to the next level or else they wouldn't be there. Mm-hmm. Teams aren't going to invest in you if they don't think you can make it there. They're hoping you're going to make it there, and they need you to prove yourself. And proving yourself is 1, being a professional, 2, consistency, which is the hardest thing to do. Being consistent. It doesn't matter. I mean, yeah, again, and then we talk about it. 60% of the time you're going to fail. I mean, to be fair, it's more like 70% of the time in baseball, right? I mean, you're failing 70% of the time.
Even more so in modern ball, but
and we got Nate and JT, you'll know this too. So we've got one in Cleveland, Jose Ramirez, always up for MVP consider. He's a great player. He's the face of that franchise. He has been for a couple of years now. But when at the end of the day, he bats, 280, 289, maybe close to 290, which in the majors, that's fantastic. But then you go back, and I think I brought this up a while ago when I asked who was the best hitter in baseball history, and I said Pete Rose or Ichiro. Ichiro went 1 for 3 in his first game in the major leagues. Never batted 300 in his career after that, ever. And that's amazing. And you're right, that's still failing 66% of the time or whatever it is. And then you look at guys, Aaron Judge was 400. He was batting 430, I believe, at one point this year. And now he's under 400. And you go back many moon ago when Ted Williams hit 406. I mean, think about that. Think about today's ball player and how much skill, strength, eye coordination, all these different things that they can do to improve their ability on a baseball diamond. And guys are flirting with 350 and they're, maybe 360 here and there. George Brett at 390. I think that was the last time that someone got close. Ted Williams at 406. What the hell were these guys doing? Were they swinging with telephone poles? I mean, it really makes you think about how good those players back now. Granting the pitching wasn't as stellar.
It's different now.
But still, the game
19-year-olds can throw 100 miles an hour.
What I'm saying, no, but you see here now we're going to get into an argument because now you've opened the worms. I'm not saying Ted Williams versus who's the Skubal, Tarek Skubal from the Tigers. I'm not saying that. I'm saying Ted Williams versus Bob Gibson. Like at that time, the best versus the best. Mickey Mantle versus Bob Feller. And Mickey Mantle had just those careers and those numbers and everything at the start of their career versus it. Now, Ted Williams today, I don't know. I don't want to say anything. I just don't know. Baseball is the hardest thing to recognize because if you can see the ball, those guys back in the day were throwing heat. All they threw was gas. 95, 96. Some guys would get to 99, some top out, but that's all they did. But they pitched for 9 innings doing that. Guys now, they cop out at 6 innings, and it's a quality start, what they think is garbage. But do you think that, and let's go back to the question I asked you, JT, when you said Pele and you're mentioning Maradona, you can even get into the Ronaldo thing, the Ronaldinho, all these different guys who just stood out of soccer. Like if you knew how to play soccer, you know how to play soccer. So is that more relevant now because of with football, you have to be bigger, stronger, and faster. With basketball, you have to be bigger, stronger, and faster. Baseball, you have to be bigger, stronger, and faster. Soccer, is it just knowing how to play the game correctly? Or do you have to be on that new elite athleticism level to make it?
No, I don't. I mean, I think athletically, athleticism comes in a lot of different shapes and sizes, right? We see that on the soccer space a lot. We see that in sports in general too. There's a lot of, like, you look at a McCaffrey, right? In the NFL, I mean, I don't think he'd be considered the biggest, tallest, fastest. I think he'd be considered the fastest. You know what I mean? And so like that's a good example there. But in soccer, Lionel Messi is an anomaly. You know what I mean? It's an anomaly. One, he has learned how to play the game in a way in which when he steps on the field, he's willing to take any chance. There's not a lot of players out there that have that carte blanche, who are like, I'm going to go out there and just do whatever I want, and I can pull it off. You know what I mean? Like he's one of those players, and Pele was one of those players as well. And again, not knowing their personal kind of walks, maybe kind of having an outsider's look into it. Both of those players specifically are coming from environments where they had to prove. They're proving grounds, right? Wherever they walked into, they had to show somebody why they deserve to be there in the early going of their careers. And I think that plays a lot into this. You know, again, you talked about that. The player who's working their ass off right now, who will probably never make it to the highest levels in this country, is the one that gets shafted, right? Because they have the hardest work ethic, right? They have the hardest work ethic of anybody on the field, but they'll never get there because they don't have the talent that goes with it. They don't have that component, that special component where they get on the field and everyone sees it. You know what I mean? There are players when they walk into the batter's box, something special is going to happen. You know, when they walk into the huddle, when they come out of it that they're going to go make you just know they're these special players. And those players, and a good example of that would be, or the good example of a player that maybe is getting maybe undervalued at the beginning and now is way overvalued, or not still their value, but they're growing in value, is like an Amon St. Brown for the Lions, right? Like, guy got drafted very low, right? And he's like, well, I'm going to go prove to the world that I deserve to be here. And what is he doing? He's one of the best wide receivers in the NFL. And why is that? Because he took that chip on his shoulder and said, I'm gonna go prove people wrong. And there's a lot of players out there that are like Amon St. Brown, but they'll never make it to that level. Because somewhere along the lines, there was a scout, there was a coach, there was an owner that said, "No, you're not good enough," and they don't get a chance. How many players are there out there that are like that? There's probably a shit ton, and especially in soccer, I would argue there's probably a lot of them.
Yeah. You think it's ever because maybe they don't fit into the mold or the system, as you were talking about? Because I was actually watching the I Hate Soccer podcast a little bit the other day, which I saw your cameo on it, JT. So that was pretty cool. Getting to stop on his show, but I was watching it, and he talked about how one of the things that kind of irks him about the younger levels and the club levels and stuff like that, especially with tryouts right now, is how obsessed coaches are with the creating a system that works for them and then just having all their players fit directly into that system, like trying all these different formations and different ways and getting them all to mold into this one cohesive unit. I know that's important for team success and everything, but it's kind of what I was asking, like when we had the GOYC guys on, and them being in different countries and doing this tournaments in different places. And like I was talking about the individual expression of the game and how in different parts of the world they play the game differently. And I'm actually fascinated by that, because really you can go country by country and it's like they all have a different MO. They have a different way of going about it. But do you ever feel like maybe the individual expression in the game can be missing a little bit in the States?
It's taken away. I think it's taken away
like we're a
in
little
the
too
academy level. I think the
yeah.
creativity process of a young kid, who even before he goes to a tryout or he gets the opportunity to go to an academy tryout with someone who's recognizable, like here it would be Indy 11, FC Pride, something like that. And I'm not saying these two teams specifically, but across the country, I think those days of when they're in their backyard and they're chipping a ball on their back heel and they're, flicking it up and putting on the back of their neck and doing all that kind of stuff, I think it's stripped away. And I think that's why we get absolutely destroyed in every single international match that we play, because those players are special. They have the creativity. They let them be who they're going to be. Do they fit? But they are the ones that form the system. The players are the ones that form the system at those levels. I think coaches, and I might be completely wrong with this, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, and I'm sorry, but I feel coaches, World Cup coaches across, not here, but across the world, and then certain Premier League club teams, Serie A, some of the South American teams, all these teams, I think coaching is so irrelevant. I don't think the coach needs to be there. I feel it's he just pulled a me. See you later. But it reminds me of the Bulls with Phil Jackson, the Lakers with Phil Jackson, the Golden State Warriors with Steve Kerr. Did they need to be there? I mean, were they just kind of controlling egos? Because what was Phil Jackson going to tell Michael Jordan? What was Phil Jackson going to tell Kobe? He was going to
draw up plays for
O'Neal,
MJ,
other than stop fighting. What is Steve Kerr? The part of the original Splash Brothers, Mark Price and Steve Kerr for the Cavs, to me, were the original Splash Brothers. But what was Steve Kerr? Really? You're telling me that Steve Kerr is a better three-point shooter than Klay Thompson and Steph Curry? No. What's he going to tell them? Or Kevin Durant or anything? So do you guys agree with that? That these players are the ones formulating the system, and the coach is like, okay, I recognize this, and now I'm adapting to you, rather than these young kids who are going to a program. The coach is like, this is how we're going to do it, and that's it.
Maybe it's a little smartest man in the room syndrome. Everybody's trying to be the smartest. Everyone's trying to be the most brilliant, and maybe that's the problem. I don't know, JT, you know more about that space because of how you've been in it.
A coach's job is to create a culture and a foundation in which the team can build upon, right? And then working within that culture to get the best out of your players. Like, that's the job. The job isn't to win as much as it is. I mean, you want to, obviously the byproduct of that culture is winning, right? But you have to have players bought into it. And the biggest challenge in the professional environment is you've got players who make way more money than the coach does. So how again, it's unbalanced. In what world do the employees make more money than the employer? But in the professional sports world, that's what we've created. We've created this thing where the coach is making way less than the player. So how would that work? Put that in any other environment, in a professional environment, not sports, but just in the world where you have employees who make way more money than the employer. And in most cases, that's not a thing. Now, granted, you may get into sales, and maybe salespeople might make more money than potentially a manager, but I would still put that in a rare scenario. But here you have subordinates who make more money than you do. So therein lies the problem when it comes to professional landscape. But I think going back to your point about like at the younger ages and talking about like taking the special aspect out of a player. First off, I'm not saying I don't disagree or don't agree. I think I'm trying to still kind of comprehend kind of maybe the way you were going about that. But as a coach, your job is to create an environment that allows the team to grow together while also working towards individual growth with each individual player, right? So you want to see a player go from this, to this, right? And you want to see that happen. And if they're doing that and every player does that, what does that mean? The team as a whole gets better, right? So that's what your goal is. And again, also in our environment is that you've got all these different dynamics. And if you just allowed every player on the field to go use their special set of skills, you might find yourself with 11 different players doing 11 different things on the field. So trying to manage that is very challenging. And so what I would say to players is say, hey, you have these traits. By all means, we want you to have the autonomy to use these traits, but you have to do so in the way in which it's the betterment of the team. So for you to do, bicycles and rainbows, in the back line doesn't make a lot of sense. Hey, but if you're up in the, up in the final third, by all means, go ahead. You know what I mean? But don't be doing like, dribbling the back line, our back line, to lose the ball because now we're going to get scored on. That's not great for the team, right? And so we would say those types of things to players. I just think that like when we see players like Messi, we see players like Ronaldo, we see these once in a generation type players who changed the game. I think that we look and go, well, how do we get more of them? Well, I don't think the answer is how do we get more of them. I think the answer is how do we just continue to get high quality soccer players that can, when they go out in the field, can actually have an impact in a game, because the Lionel Messis are an anomaly. The Pelés are an anomaly. You're going to see one of these every 20 years,
Right.
and how many great players do we have right now around the world that we consider and say they're generational players, like generational players? And we could look at the NBA and say LeBron James, Steph Curry, generational players. Right? Generational. Caitlin Clark is a generational player in the WNBA. Right? We're arguing. Right now we're still trying to figure that part out. Maybe I think she's probably going to be a generational player.
She is.
So
already.
She is by far the best player in the WNBA. I will not.
Yeah.
I will fight on a.
No, that's fine. It's because she's only in her second year. I'm just saying that, but again, we can say before. Okay, so you go LeBron James and Steph Curry in the last 20 years. Who is another generational player in the NBA?
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant.
Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant.
Well, 20 years. I mean, Jordan wasn't, but yes, I hear what you're saying.
So now we're going to get technical.
He said 20 years.
We're talking, what every team has.
All right, so back in 2005, it was Kobe Bryant in 2005.
So, there you go.
So we've got 4 generational players in 20 years that we just talked about, right? And so before that, I think there were a lot more generational players, to be fair, in the NBA. Right, you had a lot of players that were, argue.
But that in the NBA, I think it's different because when we say generational, the ones that come to mind are quickly Jordan, Kobe, LeBron. But you're telling me that Kevin Durant's not a generational player? Can you say? I mean,
if we're measuring him up, again, there's a lot of great players, but generational.
Kevin
Durant fits in. I'm just saying, if you put him up
on the planet,
huh?
Kevin Durant is the best scorer on the planet.
Okay,
I think we're splitting hairs though between all-time greats and generational. Though there is a line between.
Is there a difference though?
There is a difference. Steph Curry is the best shooter to ever touch a basketball. Period.
We also talked about we talked about this before, like that. We don't want to call them GOATs, but we want to call them like in that time period they were the best.
Right.
They were the greatest in that 10-year period, right?
Fundamentally changed the game.
But do you think generational comes with the token that you have to change the game in some way, shape, or form?
I think so. Because I think Jordan did. I think Jordan brought the game to an international level, especially when you look at that Team USA, the dream team he was on. That changed basketball in the world permanently.
That wasn't fair. That wasn't fair.
It wasn't fair. They were on tour. That's what it was. It was a rock concert everywhere they went.
Whatever the world was thinking, I would have loved to be in a Slovenia. Just be like, oh my, we got to play them.
I think Jordan made it international. I think Steph changed the way the game is played. I think all teams are now perimeter based, whether they're good at it or not. I think that's the way the game's gone. But also, I would say LeBron, with the way that he, again, for better or for worse, the way that he gets involved with the social and political side of the conversation, like a lot of players would avoid like the plague before, the whole shut up and dribble thing. Bron kind of ushered in the new player-centric generation where they realize they hold all the power and also they can get involved in social and political issues a lot more than what they maybe did before. So I think
I want to piggyback of what you just said about Steph Curry. Yeah. Because if we're talking about and take every sport, and I want to know who did it in soccer. Steph Curry, not only the greatest shooter of all time, he literally changed the way basketball is played now from this level down to this level. Has literally changed the entire landscape.
Yep.
You've got guys who are 6'10", 6'11", 7 foot. Look at Chet Holmgren. I feel if I touched that guy with my index finger, he would collapse because he's so skinny. He has no inside game whatsoever, but he wants to bring it out. Kevin Love, when he was with the Cavs, and fat Kevin Love with the Timberwolves, and then thin Kevin Love with the Cavs, He would want to bring it out and shoot threes. Dirk Nowitzki, 7 foot, 3-point shooter. Steph created that.
Mm-hmm.
And that is what kids do not want to take. Nobody knows what a perimeter jumper is anymore. Tim Duncan's screaming right now. Like, what the hell? Give me the elbow. Give me the elbow. Mr. Fundamental, he's dying right now. So who did that in the other sports? Who was the generational soccer player of everybody that literally changed the game? Was it Pele?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, Pele changed the game in a lot of different ways. I mean, the problem
Would you say the same thing about Messi, though?
Huh?
Would you say the same thing about Pele clearly?
The problem is that like what we just talked about with like basketball is in perimeter play, right? I don't know if like there's been a style of play that's changed because of Pele, because of Messi, because of play. I think if we talk about like the overall like the culture or the on the international stage, the viewership, all those things, right? I think if you talk about like what they've done for the game outside the game, I think actually is way bigger than what they might have done on the pitch to change anything. Because what are you going to do? You're just going to send 2 defenders, 3 defenders to defend them, right? You're not going to. I mean, what have they? They haven't changed the laws of the game, right? We have. I mean, you can actually argue that there are basketball players that have created new rules. I don't know if that's happened that hasn't happened in soccer.
Yep.
I mean, so if you think about it from the perspective of that, they are superstars in their own right, but I don't know if they've changed the game. I think they've changed how we watch the game, how we get excited about the game, how the game transcends in other cultures, and how people get rally around that, and how people want to go watch that player. Very so much like in other sports too, right? You want to go watch the best players. But you take Messi and you take Ronaldo, you take these players out of the mix, and and Messi doesn't come to the United States. Do we see an uptick in tickets?
No.
No, we don't, right? So you bring in somebody else who's of lesser value, right? Do we think Suarez came over, right? He came over as part of this package. Just do we get the seats because of Suarez? We do not. They're not going to fill the seats the same way they did for Messi. So I also look at it, and this is a great comment by Peter. He's like, I think Pele and Messi are students of the game. Yeah, they are. But Messi does not play the game. He's a very intelligent player. Messi knows that he's going to get triple teamed. He knows he's going to get 3 or 4 bodies on him in a given moment. So what does that mean for him? That means that there's 3 players that are wide open. So he will use that to his advantage to create. He's a great assist. He's a great at creating assists and then setting himself back up for the ball again. Ronaldo is just a straight up attacker. I don't know if Ronaldo is ever known for being a great assister, right? I think that he's just known for being a great scorer, right? So, and that's a big difference in how the style of play. Pele was a great scorer, but Pele again, he was also a player that at the time when they were playing, there wasn't this. You weren't allowed to be, showy with the ball. That was his thing. He wanted to pop the ball up. He wanted to get creative. He wanted to be himself. And at that time, you were not allowed to be yourself. So if anyone changed the game, it was him, because then it was taboo. You can't do that. You can't do rainbows and bicycles and scissors and all these different things that he was doing in order to create opportunity. And he started to do it despite what his coaches and the owners and the people were telling him to do. And it became a new thing. So if anyone changed the game, it's Pele. Because nobody else at that time was doing that kind of stuff. It was you pass the ball, you listen, you fall in line, you do your thing. And he didn't. He said, screw that. I'm going to go do my thing. And what they did, they won a World Cup over it. Right. So I think youngest player to ever do it too. Right. So I think it was like 18 or 19 years old when he did it, whatever it was. So if anyone changed the game, it was him, because that allowed players to go be themselves. And so obviously circling it back to your original point about creativity. He's definitely done that. But I think Messi's and the Ronaldos of the world have just like with the Premier League across the pond, right? We're so enthralled as fans in this country about the Premier League. Oh my God, it's the Premier League. It's unbelievable. Here's the MLS, Premier League. Oh my God, this is the greatest thing ever.
Well, we've talked about this, is that soccer's never going to catch on here. As much as we want to believe it, it's just not. We're always going to be NFL first, and then it's like the NFL in the field for everybody else. Whoever comes in second or third, whatever. everybody anticipates the NFL because it literally is a 12-month of the year thing. You play 6 months. You play from late August until January. Then you have the playoffs and the Super Bowl, and then you get ready for the draft, and then you have summer work or OTAs and all this kind of stuff, and then the preseason comes, and it's just what we're embedded with. But I love this conversation because when you look at soccer and you look at Pele and you think, I mean, he has set the precedent for everybody. When you look, we just mentioned about 4 players who have done something different in basketball. Like Jordan brought it international. Jordan brought branding into the league with Nike. You look at Kobe, what he did for the league. You look at LeBron. Baseball, and when I think of generational, honestly, Nate, and again, JT, please jump in here on this. I think there's only been 2 generational players in the history of baseball. And it took 100 years for that to happen. Babe Ruth and Ohtani, who
Barry
were both
Bonds.
dominant from they
Barry
could hit.
Bonds.
No, because Barry Bonds couldn't pitch. Barry Bonds didn't do anything different. He just hit the ball with the cream.
I think he ushered in the era of the home run ball, which is when you look at baseball
And the
now,
steroid
and
era.
I realize maybe, yeah, you could claim that. I mean,
will
I
claim
think
it.
I think you point me to
Hole
a good
on the
player. I mean, hey, there's a whole separate argument about how much steroids actually affects someone's output. But here's what I'll say though, because I know we were talking earlier about how, well, you have to, if you hit 3 out of 10, there's a good chance you'll get up. The advanced analytics in the game now are what teams are looking at. Not necessarily the numbers we're used to looking at that tell us that a player is good or this, that, or the other thing. They're looking at launch angle. They're looking at exit velo. And the reason being is because they want players that can affect the game on one swing. Because truthfully, there are a lot of players that can strike out a whole lot, but they can also completely change the entire complexion of a game on one swing. To give you an example, we have a 20-year-old on our team. His name's Josue Briseño. He's a Venezuelan kid. He's going to be one of the better power hitters in Major League Baseball in a couple of years. I think he's the most underrated young bat in our game today. He's only hitting about 267. 6 out of his last 9 hits have been home runs, and he's affected the outcome of 2 separate games because of his ability to do that. And that's why teams are looking at those advanced analytics. So that's why I believe that Bonds, although, yes, he was on the juice, and yes, he's not allowed in the Hall, I think him, along with Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire and those guys, kind of ushered in the era of the home run ball, which I think changed a lot.
I don't understand Peter's comment. How did I put my foot in my mouth about soccer?
I think that might have been Turner. I don't know. We got 2 Johns, Peter.
No. I'm a Jonathan, and he's a John. It's not.
I'm curious of how I put my mouth and foot about soccer.
We'll just do a
Peter, you're going to be our next guest, man. If you keep talking that junk, dude.
Rewind.
Jake Silic on.
I think he was saying, maybe in regards to how you thought that maybe that soccer will never get to, it's like an afterthought.
In America, maybe I don't know. Maybe that's.
Did you talk about football?
Peter, we can be real, man. It's not. I don't think it's ever going to overtake football, American football.
If that's what it is about, if that's the comment, then that's just a mush comment. To me, I mean, if someone honestly can look me straight dead in the eye and say, you know what, the Seattle Sounders are going to be, go ahead, JT, get closer to that camera and say it. The Seattle Sounders will be bigger than the Dallas Cowboys. Somebody please have the balls to say that to me, to my face,
John,
or say that the MLS will someday overtake the NFL.
John,
because if I got to go to jail, someone will have to bail me out. Because you'll get such a quick right so fast to the jawline, it would happen instantly. Be 2 sounds. Me hitting you. See, here we go.
We're gonna beat you up.
One day, the NFL will still be number 1.
Thank you. God bless your heart. God bless your heart. But I want to go back to that thing what you said and how we were talking about Messi, Pele, but we're also talking about size, speed, strength, and everything. How tall are you guys? Nate, you said you're about 5'8", right?
5'9" on a good day.
Okay. JT?
6'9".
Oh,
6'3". I'm 6'3".
you're 6'3"?
Yeah.
I'm 6'2". Pele, 5'8", so the same height as Nate. Messi, 5'7". Ronaldo's 6'2". Just to put it in, as you use a lot of perspective. You know how small 5'7" is? You know how small that is? My father's 5'9", and I
I
tower over them.
I think Nathan knows how small 5'7" is.
Lionel
Hey.
Messi as my mother.
Yeah.
You
But
think
the thing is Messi, yeah.
Cheryl running around on the pitch doing stuff. No, there's no way. I would laugh. But that guy's 5'7". And he has a fantastic smelling cologne, by the way. I almost bought it yesterday at JCPenney. $79. A little bit too pricey for me, but it smells fantastic. Anywho, he brought the marketing world back, didn't he? That's the only thing you see anywhere you go in any sports store. It's like Jordan. I mean, Jordan's got his own apparel. You'll see LeBron shoes, and then it's just Messi stuff. The pink and the white and the black of Inter Miami, but that's it. And that's the only jersey that people know how to say, because you put Pulisic back of a jersey, someone tries to say it, and they're like, "That's okay."
Yep. It's like I don't think you can really fundamentally change the way you play soccer, though. I mean, that's the other thing. That's what the difference about the game. Like, the game is the game. You know, you can maybe different individual moves or different formations, different stuff like that. But it's not like basketball where you have a 3-point line. It's not like baseball where, you know, one goal can count for 4. You know, it's very much
goal?
the game is what the game is.
Sorry.
What's that?
I just, when you said one goal can be worth 4.
Yeah, I mean,
Look at this cat. That's not even. See, that's 190. 190.
Yeah,
that's not real.
It is.
it is.
It can't be.
He exists.
Yeah, he actually went to Rochester Christian University here in Michigan for a year. He's 7'7".
Why is he shooting that shot? Why? There's no. He had better take that to the hole. I just got my no reason. There's no reason. That cat should be just. He didn't even jump, and my man did, and he just let it come down. But see, that kid. I guarantee that kid will amount to nothing.
Well, I don't think he's playing anymore.
Yeah.
But my point, you're 100% when it comes to soccer, you are 100% spot on. There are something to be said about having a physically strong center back who's 6'3", right? A specimen. But your offensive minded players, who are going to have the ball at their feet a good chunk of the game, who are going to be your creators, they are not going to be 6'4", 220 pounds. You know what I mean? It's not going to be the case. And so, you know, Ronaldo as a forward, a strong forward, but he was, again, I wouldn't consider him to be a very dynamic player. Ronaldo was a very, very good player, but not dynamic. And he was not someone that, a lot of times you see him just kind of hanging back, doing his thing, receive the ball, and then use his speed and his physicality to go score goals. And he would use his set piece ability to go score goals. Right? A very different player than that of Messi, who has the ball at his feet, you know, and on his half of the field has 3 players coming over to him, and he's dribbling through all 3 players, you know, and so that they're completely different makeups of players.
It's fascinating. It's absolutely, I think what your point here is that it's fun to watch Ronaldo just because of some of the strikes that he has, you know, from 30 yards out or 25 and the bend he can put on the ball and just the precision that he gets and all that. But to watch Messi, as you say, to have 3 defenders literally come up on him, he pauses, and then the next thing you know, he's either by them or he finds that the smallest window that only he can get that ball through, and he does it. Messi is fascinating to watch. I like watching Ronaldo and his highlights and stuff, and when that was the big who's better thing, that was always kind of funny to me because it's like, you have to watch the entire product. You can't just watch the goals being scored, because if you took the amount of assists, as you said, JT, if you took the amount of assists versus what Ronaldo has and put those together, Messi is God. It's like LeBron scoring and his assist to Jordan scoring and his assist. It's yin and yang.
Yeah, I would agree. It's a great conversation. We'll continue it tomorrow.
This is one of the best podcasts we've ever had. This was fantastic. Let's do this again. And I like Peter. Yeah, I will look down on you.
Good job,
Tony. Good job.
I concur. We'll continue this conversation tomorrow. It's a good one. Tryouts are right around the corner here in the great state of Michigan and across the country. So, and I know Natalie, one more thing. Go ahead.
Big news in the NWSL. Denver's new team has a financial backer in the name of the sheriff, Peyton Manning.
Oh,
huge for that team.
That is massive.
Massive. We'll talk about that and other things tomorrow on episode number 99. 98's in the books. That's Nathan Wangler. That right there is John Natale. I'm Jonathan Turner. Thanks for stopping by. Subscribe, like us, share us, friends and family. Be back tomorrow, same time, same place.